Our guest today is Kwame Darko. Kwame is a branding genius, with over a decade in the business in brand marketing. He has also started his own wine company. His wine company, which is grapes out of Portugal.
Yep, sourced from Portugal.
Sourced from Portugal, which he originally fell into while playing professional soccer overseas in Portugal, moved back to the U.S., and this, while branding is his thing, was actually his passion project that has now become more of life.
Should we read? Because it's not from that.
I love when I do that.
Ah.
I love when I do that. When I think I know, and I throw it. That happens, not all the time, but it's happened before. So what's the origin?
So the origin is my good friend growing up, and
Name?
Daniel Orson. So
Okay.
good friend, business partner as well. He lived in Portugal. His wife is Portuguese. They started their own brand where they were sourcing grapes from Portugal, and kind of in my kind of beginnings of creating it, that was kind of the easiest way and the not the barrier to entry, but the easiest entry way into wine.
Was it always going to be Darko Wine?
From a branding standpoint, yes. It was easy enough where his brand's name Orson, and then my name's Darko, and I was like, let's take the Darko and then take the Orson O. Easy enough.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, is that what you're doing now? Is that 100% what you're doing now? Is that 50% what you're doing now? Give me your 100%.
I'd say it's about 50-50.
And what's the other? So if Darko Wine is 50, what's the other 50?
Brand partnership. So I work at a sports publisher, sports media company, and I sell advertising across different platforms. So from the website to digital, social, influencers.
What's your title there?
Director of brand partnerships.
The Director of Brand Partnerships. They don't just give that label out.
They do sometimes.
They do? Did you just get it, or you had to?
No,
you got there.
Yeah, I think I got there.
All right, so let's rewind.
Yep.
How'd you get into brand partnerships? Because the origin story from that will definitely lead into Darko Wines.
Totally.
So rewind. You are a D1 athlete. You played soccer your whole life. Did you think you were going to play soccer your entire life?
Definitely thought I was, and through that collegiate process, I've tons of friends who were professionals, still professionals. Some have retired, played at the highest level. When you play at the University of Maryland, is regarded as almost the best team in the country, or the best teams that I had played on in the country.
Growing up in D.C., did you have a leg up to play in Maryland?
I think I had a leg up because I was a local kid, but my team just happened to also be the best team in the nation as well. So we were winning national championships, and they took about 5 of us from that one championship team, and we all decided to go as kind of a package deal to Maryland.
That's awesome. Do you see like the camaraderie from your playing days playing into everything that you've done since then?
100%. I mean, I think mainly like relationships and the way that I attack everything I do. I'm a team player for sure. Competitive team player, very loyal, and I think kind of that growth as a soccer player and having friends and teammates along the way is kind of translated into other areas.
So you go to University of Maryland, you're playing soccer. What were you studying, and how did you get into brand partnerships? Like you don't just fall into brand partnerships.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind that turned you into that?
Oh man, well I studied economics at Maryland. I have zero idea how I ended up graduating because it did get pretty tough.
So you're a math guy.
Sort of. See, that's the.
You have to be a math guy to do major in economics. To even pass economics, you got to kind of be a math guy.
The curve helped a lot, but I was also really good with
Is that the athlete curve?
The theories. Yeah, it's all. I think it's the whole curve across the board because of that math component you mentioned. No, but I was good with the theory. Again, supply, demand. Learning those different theories. Obviously, it's most basic, but the math, I would say, was like the most difficult part, getting into statistics and all the calc and whatnot. But you study the formulas and you learn the basics.
Did being an athlete make you have more interest in this, or was it the opposite?
No, economics. I think business is what I've I'd always been into it. Always entrepreneurial. Was into music. Was always selling things growing up as well. So just basic economics and the thought of pursuing a career in what would be economics made sense, and I never thought that in essence I would be doing economics because import export of wine that's something that I do, but I never thought that I'd actually be utilizing it in its like truest form. Never thought, you know, somebody would say you were actually doing economical things in your
Right,
work life.
and but we're now like connecting the dots from your childhood, when you grew up selling, like what
parents' newspapers, soccer cleats, you know, mixtapes, everything.
That's amazing. And you did that as a kid, and then you went to college, and then you have 8 businesses in college.
I was doing music, so I was selling music and I was doing shows. So
Tell me more. When you say doing music, because when I was in middle school, I would make mixtapes.
Yeah.
And that's when like Napster came out.
Yep.
And I would do like whatever, it was a 12 to 15 track CD, and I would sell them for $5 in school. Something like that, or were you making your own music?
Making my own music and doing my own shows and throwing my own parties.
Your own shows.
Yeah, I was performing.
Go on.
Yeah. So I was a recording artist.
Let's hear the story.
I was a recording artist.
Give us a
for
year.
a time period. What year was this? I started in high school where I was recording music, right? And then in college it got a bit more serious when I went out to LA to visit with Sony. I learned that I could.
When you went, you just throw went to go. When I went to visit with Sony, you just throw that out there, like
threw it out there.
Like it's I don't even know comparison. Like to go, you just went out there to visit with Sony. So we're talking, it's like 2004, 2003.
I'd say starting in like 2002 all the way to 2000.
How did you
15,
get
16.
a call from Sony?
So a girl on the women's team at Maryland, her father was the VP of A&R at Sony at the time. Everyone on campus and everyone knew that I was making music, that I guess was pretty good at it as well. I had a few friends that were playing for the LA Galaxy in LA, so during our spring break, that's when we had some time where I didn't have to actually practice and could get some time away. I asked if I could meet with her dad while I was also catching up with some of my boys in
Her
LA.
dad, who happens to be a A&R at Sony.
Exactly. So yeah, he said, sure, listen to my music beforehand, and obviously as a favor to her being my homegirl, he said cool, and he was pleasantly surprised. It wasn't just like, who the hell am I listening to, this kid rapping and singing and shit. So
what did you learn from that? Like, what did you get out of it?
Closed mouths don't get fed.
And that's something that you've held on for life.
Yeah, definitely.
So we get to college, we get an opportunity to go to Sony. You get shut down.
Yep.
Essentially.
Yep.
Are you trying to ride the music train, or now it's what, 2006 about?
Yeah.
Are you like, all right, I'm gonna play professional soccer, whether it's MLS or somewhere around the world, because for any athlete, soccer is probably the sport where you can play anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
And actually get paid.
Totally.
So I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna make music.
Yeah.
That's my passion.
Yeah. So no, I kept going with music, actually. So the trip only kind of enhanced my passion.
There we go.
More, because I learned that instead of just performing, there was this other side of it, which was songwriting, where you could get paid handsomely doing that, and it was also a way to continue making music outside of genres that might have just been mine.
Did you learn that based on like a bit of advice that you had got from the guy at Sony?
Totally.
Yeah. Do you remember what he said?
He told me you don't have to be front and center. He's like, a lot of these big artists, they got their way into the industry by writing songs for other people.
And you, being one of the best soccer players in your town, in your city, who then went and played for one of the top 5 programs in the country, you probably didn't have a small ego.
No.
So you then making your own music that you want to perform for someone so that you held at such high regard, that was probably very humbling to hear.
It was, and I guess I understood. Like, he named a whole bunch of artists who wrote for other people, and named a bunch of the different songs that like you didn't know that someone else wrote them, right? Again, I was never thinking in that capacity. Obviously, it's been a thing forever, right? But I just was never thinking that way.
So 2006, it kickstarts the I don't need to be front and center. What's the next year or two look like?
I just keep continuing to write, and I'm still performing. At the same time, again, I am in school playing soccer, so most of my time is devoted to that. But I think, unlike a lot of other kids who were playing soccer, I was able to work on my passion outside of soccer. A lot of the guys I played with, soccer was it. That was it. during college, they didn't really take advantage of other opportunities and other passion points to really look into because they were just so focused on soccer and playing pro. You know, I was focused on pro, but also the music side of things. And luckily enough, I was able to see the entire process, and I've been able to see the careers of players who were better than me, or subjectively better than me. Seeing what their careers turned out.
Did you think that me focusing on this music is going to hinder my passion towards just playing soccer?
I think it exposed the lack of passion I had for soccer, or the passion that was necessary to get to that level that I would want to be in. Like, my goal
with
was
soccer or music?
With soccer. You know, my goal was never to play in the MLS. I wanted to play for Manchester United, right? My goal was never to sit on the bench or play for a USL team. Not that there's any issue with that, right? Like,
USL, that's below MLS?
Yeah, that's like the other American league. And
okay.
Great leagues, all these are great things, right? Like, not knocking any of that. It was just, I wanted to play for Manchester United. Once, reality kind of set in and realizing, like, the true potential mixed with, like, my actual passion, I then said, you know what, if I'm going to make it to the top, I can't make it to the top or where I'd want to be in soccer based on the passion that I have for it, right?
Did someone tell you that, or did you figure that out for yourself?
I figured that out myself, right? There's 7 days of the week. If the sport was maybe 3 days out of the week where you had to, like, play at your best, that might have been a different story, but, like, consistency was definitely a big issue. So, 3 days out of the week, I could be as good as anybody. You put 7 days where there's 4 more days of having to perform at a certain level. There's other players who, I think were consistently playing at their best 7 days out of the week, whereas, like, you get amazing days for 3 days from me, and then 4 days would be like, I have zero idea what Kwame's going to do.
So then what'd you do music-wise when you figured out that soccer's not going to be your end-all, be-all?
Yeah.
Because you're not looking to put 100% into it. You want to put time into your music because you had the clarity. You had your music was justified. You met with someone from Sony, and he was like, "You're good, but here's some advice."
Yeah.
How'd that play out?
Again, I kept performing because that's what I wanted to do, right? So I moved to New York. That was like right when I was deciding whether or not I was going to play or not. I came to this crossroads, and I was like, you know what? I want to pursue music more. So I said, forget soccer.
Did you start performing in venues in New York?
Yeah. Every venue you could think of, all through Brooklyn. I was doing everything on the Lower East Side. I was doing pianos, Arlene's Grocery, Music Hall, Williamsburg, and Brooklyn. Just any venue you could think of, I was performing.
Can I find videos of you on YouTube?
Definitely.
Oh my god.
Definitely. Yeah.
I'm going down a rabbit hole tonight.
Definitely. So.
Do you have a favorite performance you ever did?
Favorite performance with Big Sean at Fillmore in DC, Silver Spring.
Was there a big part of that being in your backyard?
Definitely. The marketing aspect, like the radio stations as well. They're looking for somebody from the area who could have a big draw there as well. And I luckily also knew the head of marketing for the Fillmore and Live Nation, so was able to kind of use that as well.
That's amazing. So when did soccer fully stop for you?
In terms of me trying to be a professional, it stopped literally after my senior season ended, right? I got an agent,
Were you
right?
upset?
It was an identity shift, right? In some capacity, because I've always been the soccer player, right? And then you're always playing, and I think, I was burnt out, I think, a bit, and I was also ready to just, like, continue moving forward with whatever.
Do you think you would have got burnt out if you weren't doing music? If you were just soccer, do you think you would have got burnt out?
I think music became a thing because I was already burnt out, or because I already was passionate about something else. Or again, as I mentioned, I realized that, like, my passion wasn't where it needed to be to get to that other level. So I allowed other things to get in the way of it, I think.
Okay. So you leave that behind. You moved to New York.
Moved to New York.
In 2008?
2011.
2011. And what's your family's take when you're moving from D.C., where you grew up, you went to school? Well, not school in D.C., Maryland. You've been there your whole life, and now you want to move up to New York.
Yeah.
What's the reaction from the family?
My mom was all about it. She was, scared for, her kid to move to New York or whatever. But I had a good setup. I had two of my closest friends who were already living in Brooklyn. I moved in with them. I found a job at CBS Radio, which was kind of the beginning of my world into like brand partnerships and advertising. So
what was your role there? Do you remember?
I started off as an account manager.
Okay.
And what I was doing was I was teaching senior radio sales reps how to sell digital, because they were all kind of just very focused on
Were
radio.
they like boomers who didn't know how to sell the digital product?
Definitely. That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
So how long were you there, and how did that start to now mold the branding genius?
So I was there for 3 years, I believe, and so I was an account manager there, where I was kind of helping with proposals and teaching them the ins and outs of digital. Pretty quickly, they were like, Kwame, instead of you teaching, like, why don't you just sell? And, from that point, I got into selling, and I was selling, again, all the different properties they owned and operated to a bunch of different local brands across New York.
But you kind of saw that there was going to be an end in sight. Like this, it wasn't an end-all, be-all for you.
No, I still was working on music.
There you go.
I went to do music. I luckily got into a music-specific company, so I was still around music, and I learned about music promotion and music marketing, and I was always running into different artists, and they allowed me to go on tour, and were very
It's awesome.
Yeah, so it was good.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So I gotta say it. And then what? Like,
oh man, so I mean, it was a grind. Like I still kept working on music, and working.
Have you put out an album at this point? Like,
yeah, I had
what
some
do you,
singles.
Like, you're saying music now.
Yeah.
You're 10 years in the music game. Do you set goals? Is there a 3-month goal, a 6-month goal?
Yeah.
How does that work? Were you able to monetize it yet?
No, I hadn't monetized it yet, but I would soon after that. But shows I was monetizing, but again, not to the amount that would anything substantial. Right. So coming out with singles, EPs, albums, was touring and doing shows.
So is the end goal for that to be noticed and to get signed?
To get noticed and to get signed was definitely.
And then an album, goal. And then a record company pays you to put out an album.
Exactly. So that was definitely the goal. And then I kept. So what happened is I kept working on my music, and then I went on to other media companies as well. So I went to Spin Media, so another music specific place.
Yep.
Where I was doing like ad operations and sales there. I've been at Town Square Media, which has like XXL magazine, other places, and I'm selling. And this whole time while I'm still working on music, I'm learning about like the music industry, marketing, branding.
Are you
content.
trying to plug your? Not are you? I'm sure you are. How are you trying to plug your music into these media companies that you're working at?
It happened pretty organically, right? Because I had the support.
Organically.
Yeah, right. I mean, I had the support of everyone that I worked there. They were all trying to see me, shine and do my music. So, I luckily had gotten to a point where I came out with this one song called "Bet They See Me Now" that was getting played in like most MLS stadiums, and was getting some different like sync things. There was this one funny thing that really kind of broke it out. An article came out saying that I was dating Hope Solo, the soccer player, and that kind of just like.
How old is Hope Solo?
I don't know.
I feel like she's
30s,
I feel like she's
30s.
no. I feel like she's much older than no. She's around our age.
She's around our age. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, like they just.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Have you ever hooked up with Hope Solo?
No, 100% not. No.
Were you guys like hanging out ever?
So that was that was the funny story about it. Was that they had just won the Olympics. A few of my friends who were playing soccer at the time in the MLS, and they all had the same agent. We got invited to go out with them, so I was with my buddies, and obviously the women who won the Olympics, they were out as well. I took literally a random picture
with
her.
Hope Solo.
Yeah, with her with her gold medal. On Twitter, I tweeted, I was like, with my boo, Hope Solo, right, as like a very sarcastic thing that then got like totally flipped.
I once posted a picture like that with me and Selena Gomez.
Oh yeah,
didn't have the same effect.
Didn't flip.
Didn't have the same effect at all.
No, didn't flip. I think and like somebody like ran with it the picture because it made sense because like I was quote unquote like a rapper at the time, and she I guess had a history
rapper with like a soccer background.
So I think somebody spun that out of a proportion, and so that was by no means like anything going on with me and her, but that picked up a nice little media storm, which was fun at the time.
Listen, any press is good press, kind of.
Yeah. So exactly right. So and things could be a lot worse, I guess, than that press. So yeah, so that happened. The song continued to grow a bit. Again, me as a performer myself, I was still going on tour, but like, you know, nothing was really evolving the way in which I wanted to. Right.
Like at this point, are you monetizing yet?
Yeah, I'm monetizing a little bit, but
how?
It's through, again, the shows that I'm doing.
Okay. So one-offs.
Yeah, one-offs.
It's not like things, like daily listens or something like that.
No, because again, I'm still working. I think streaming definitely came in at this point, but I didn't have enough streams where I was going to make anything. I don't think any artists still have enough streams where they're making anything. But yeah, that's what I kept doing. I was still working as well, and I was still building up my credentials and resume in the media space, and I was starting to make legitimate money working in media, and I was looking, you know, at like the numbers with like music, looking at the numbers with what I'm making with like media and selling stuff, and I'm like, wait, something's not adding up the same way, or like, am I crazy for like trying to continue to pursue music, or is like I'm actually really good at, you know, sales and advertising or whatever it is, and you know, instead of fighting it, is this something that I actually like and can continue to do while trying to work on music? And, you know, music then, I'm trying to figure out when, it then kind of became more of a hobby, except the exception of songwriting on the back end. So then I started writing for TV shows and networks. So I think when I got my first...
Writing music or writing scripts?
Lyrics. So lyrics and helping with like the production of songs. So I think when that opportunity arose with Showtime,
I'm assuming you got that opportunity from someone in your network.
Definitely, 100%. A guy that I worked with, who I recorded my first song with that I ever released, from a producer. His name's Alex Krezovich, a producer of the show, that music supervisor that handles all the music. Hit him up asking
for which show.
It was Hoops U Road to March Madness. So it was like a documentary that was highlighting, actually, funnily enough, Maryland and Notre Dame going into March Madness. So it was perfect, and it was like I was.
When it makes sense, it makes sense.
Yeah. So he had hit up my friend Alex asking if there was any like rapper that he knew of in New York.
Funny you ask.
Right?
I got a guy from Maryland who actually is a rapper, writes music. Yeah. You're going to love him.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, I got the opportunity to go do that. I crushed it when I went to go record. And, you know, this is something I had never heard of in the music industry. Like, in my career at the time, obviously it's a thing, but somebody was like, hey, come to the studio, I'll give you X amount of money just to come. And I was like, so I'm getting paid to go to the studio, right? And if it doesn't work out, I still get paid. He's like, of course.
Wait, so you were going to the studio to record?
Yeah, with him. Yeah, for the Showtime thing, because this is when they were like, okay.
Oh, so you weren't just writing it, you were performing it.
I wrote and performed it, yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I got to go write and
Did it make it in?
Yeah, made it in. So in addition to getting paid to go to the studio, it got picked up, so then I got paid on top of that as a fee for that, and then I still get royalties to this day.
That's amazing. Mailbox money.
Yeah, so I think once I saw that, right, like my own music is subjective, right, and you're putting all this marketing into it, you're hustling, you're grinding, and you don't know if you're going to make anything off of it, right? I do this songwriting stuff, and it was like guaranteed money, and I was like, wait, this is what the guy at Sony was talking about in terms of like a career in writing and performing it, where it's for something specific versus like my own album or something. Like it was a song, the main title theme specific to this show. So that's when the kind of a light bulb went off of like, you know, I'm getting a little bit older at this time too. Like, do you like touring? You start asking more questions, and it's like, I crushed that. Like, is it easy for me to do this? Is it something I have a knack for? Am I a better writer with a brief, or am I better at like being my own artist? And obviously over time it's definitely turned into
and at this point you're in your late 20s, so like you're evolving. and like everything's like coming together, and your
Yeah.
passions are coming together, and your skill sets that aren't even connected to your passions are coming together.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Totally.
Was that the only opportunity that you had with Showtime?
No, I've had other opportunities. I've written for Showtime. For Showtime, I think that's the only one. But through this one producer, I've gotten other opportunities where I, wrote the title theme for the National Basketball League in Australia. I've done, different production things and across like CBS shows. I've gotten tons of opportunities, and I've written a bunch of things, and sometimes it gets placed, other times it doesn't. But you
get paid regardless.
Yeah, and I still do this to this day.
Whew. Man of many hats. And one theme that I constantly hear is network. You are a man who uses his network a lot.
Yeah.
So now you're at Spin. You're growing.
Yep.
And then what?
Bounced around from media company, as that's what happens in that industry, right? You go from kind of company to company, selling across different platforms, right? I think the biggest shift that I had was when I went to Gimlet Media, which is the podcast company that got acquired by Spotify. I was a director of brand partnerships there, selling across all the different podcasts, so in different shows, but then also helping brands create their own podcasts. That was when podcasts were like the shiny new toy, like when they were really just starting out.
Yeah, this is like what, the mid, like 2016-ish?
Yeah, something like that.
What did you do at Gimlet?
So I sold ads across all the shows that they created, but then I also
from Spin to Gimlet, was that
It wasn't Spin to Gimlet. It was there was a few others in between there. So I think it went.
How many jobs did you have?
A ton. My resume.
How many companies have you worked at from 2010 to 2020? How many companies did you work at?
I'd say probably 6 or 7.
Now, was it because you just got fed up, or was it because you were getting offered better roles?
It's a mixture.
How, what?
A mixture, I think.
Were you learning at every place, or is it? Did you kind of get like burnt out because you weren't learning enough?
I think it's a mixture, right? Especially in this industry, there's times where you cap out, right? Where say you were selling, and they just increase your goals to a certain level where you.
Which I fucking hate that. I hate that. With me, I love to set realistic goals that are super achievable. Super achievable. Not that you're gonna, let's say it's a quarterly goal and it's something that you're easily going to achieve in the first 4 weeks, but something that you should by week 9, 10 be able to achieve.
Yeah.
So you're working towards it, you can get there, and it's not something that's hard, because when you make hard goals, it makes people very unmotivated.
Yeah.
Because it makes most people think, and a lot of managers, they think that if they give people this super hard goal, they're going to work harder. Instead, it's going to be the opposite effect. Because most people, and I'm going to say as much as 80 to 90% of people, see these inflated goals as unattainable, so they don't work harder. They instead say, I'm not going to be here that long, so I'm going to work to get my paycheck. Hopefully I could meet this goal. It's going to come on one big deal that hopefully closes, and if I don't, then shit, I'll go to a different media company because this one's not being run properly.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a mixture. I think
similar to that.
Yeah, similar to that. 100% similar to that. So it's the goal thing, it's salary thing, it's getting along with.
When you played soccer,
thing.
did you have goals?
Did we have goals? I mean, we had
that's kind of punny.
Yeah, right. Funny. Yeah, exactly. No, we had team goals for sure.
Did you have a season goal? I want to have X amount of assists, X amount of yellow cards, X amount of goals.
No, I mean, playing at Maryland, it was I just want to make sure I'm playing in as many games as possible and competing with the best. And I played in the back, so I played defense, outside back. So obviously we'd want shutouts and clean sheets, but at the time for me specifically and kind of my positioning within the team, it was I want to make sure I'm being featured in or playing in as many games as possible. Right?
Clean sheets is part of the goal?
As a defender, as most defenders, that's a part of the goal.
Okay.
But I would say my own individual goals was I want to make sure that I'm competing and playing as much as possible, because there's times when you're on the bench, times when you're starting, times when you're playing a couple minutes, and at a competitive program like Maryland, unless you're one of the superstars, which there are many of them who are. You know, my goal was making sure that I was maintaining and being competitive. Like, I wasn't the superstar making sure that I was like getting the golden boot or that I was going #1 in the draft, right? Like, but the realities were that, like, yeah, I'm a guy who's competing, who wants to be starting, wants to be playing consistently, whatever that means. Yeah.
Of course. So speaking on playing consistently, you went from company A to B to C to D to E
to Z, yeah.
To Z, and now, what was the final media company that you made it to? I know you're at 137.
Yeah.
How long ago were you at 137? Where were you before that? What was your vibe there?
Man. So 137 is part of a Gallery Media Group. So I was at Gallery Media Group. That is under the VaynerX portfolio, which Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V.
And how long ago was that?
This was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
2 years ago.
And how new was it when you were there?
It was.
It's a relatively new media platform, right?
Yeah. The entity itself as Gallery Media Group was new, but there were other elements and publishers within it that weren't new. Like, for example, like a Pure Wow, which was the women's lifestyle publisher that already existed. Gallery was created to include Pure Wow, 137 PM, all the different social handles and podcasts that they owned and operated.
And what did you do there?
Brand partnerships, so advertising, sales. Yeah.
So how many of the relationships, brand partnerships, the relationships for these brand partnerships, did you bring with you from everything you'd done before that? 100%? 100%?
Everything that I could, right? That's the name of the game is, you know, there's a lot of transition across agencies.
So are they bringing you on because Kwame has these relationships?
Yeah, they're bringing you on because of the relationships you have.
Relationships, salesmanship.
Yeah, all that stuff. If you're fit for the team, all those cool things.
Getting you in there, was it someone within your network that got you the interview?
They actually had reached out to me first when I was working for another company. And at the time, I wanted to make sure I did my due diligence at the company I was at before, so I didn't want to leave there just because they came knocking on the door immediately. I then wanted to get the hell out of the place that I was at,
which was
Ozzy Media, OZY Media, which is a shit storm. Are
they still around?
Hell no. That was a shit storm. And I got out before all of the craziness that occurred with their founders and all that stuff. Yeah.
So we see what's built up to be Kwame Darko.
Oh, Darko.
Now, where does Darko Wine come into play?
Darko Wines comes into play at the beginning of COVID and the pandemic.
Like during it, like
yeah.
March 2020, everything's shut down.
Yep.
You and Jane are home.
Yep.
Naomi's not even born yet.
Not born yet.
Is Naomi, was she pregnant yet?
Jane, was she pregnant? I think she was pregnant. She was pregnant. Yeah, she was definitely pregnant. It's in 2020. Yeah.
All right. So you're home. Everything's shut down. Yeah. And what happens?
I mean, it gave me and other people an opportunity to like really dive into some of the side passions, you know, that we had. So again, my good friend and business partner Daniel Orson, who I mentioned, and his wife Pipa, they had their own brand of wine, Orson Wine, and Daniel and I have wanted to work on something together for a long time, right? Timing has just needed to be right. And his bandwidth, you know, has been getting crushed because he's been elevating and is doing his own thing.
For Orson.
Yes, for Orson, but then in hospitality, you know, he runs a hospitality group as well that he's partnering. So that takes up a lot of his time, for sure. And, you know, I think my career in branding and like sales, you know, was at a place where it was like, Dan, if you can help facilitate us getting the wine together and all those logistics, like, I can then handle the rest of it. Like this, it doesn't need to be like when we were kids where it's like, let's like hustle like together on this. It's like you help with one part, I do the rest, and like it just works nicely together. And you know, it worked out well with what started kind of as a test run to use the wine as a vehicle to give back, specifically to some villages in Ghana, West Africa, where my background is from. My dad's from there. You know, that was fine where we did a small batch and we came out with some high quality wines from Portugal, which are fantastic.
Speak more on what you were just talking about, because
Yeah.
you kind of just glazed over it.
Yeah.
But you're from Ghana.
Yes.
Your family's from Ghana, and you give back for every bottle sold. How much gets donated back to Ghana?
We have about 20% of the proceeds
That's a
to
lot.
it, in addition to just stuff out of my pocket in general, right?
And it's all from Portugal.
Yeah, these
For
wines
now.
For now, right? Yep, for now.
Tell me more. What do you mean for now?
For now. So, in getting into wine, again,
Yeah.
it's starting off as a small batch thing for fun, but to also give back.
But why wine? Why not vodka? Why not scotch? Why not mezcal? Why wine?
I've always loved wine, and again, this is as a result of my partnership with my good friend Daniel Orson as well. Back in college, he started a company called Urban Vine, which was meant to take the pretension out of wine. So he and a bunch of our friends we grew up playing soccer with would be drinking wine and pairing it with playlists and on our roof hanging out. So we were just trying to take.
I love that.
Right. At a time where younger folks, kids in their early 20s and teens as well at a point in time were drinking. They weren't drinking wine, right? So we were consuming wine and doing cool things with it, and we wanted the pretension out of it. And that's when I really got into it. He was the wine guy, right? He went on to become a sommelier and doing all these fun things and traveling the globe. I was still learning sales, marketing, working on music, but wine had always been a big part of it. And then as more time progressed, wanted to get into wine more. And, the goal was never to just come out with a wine, right? I think timing and purpose is a big part of it, right? So, the main goal now is to continue sourcing, great wine and grapes from Portugal and other places, black winemakers in the U.S. who I have good relationships with now, but ultimately I think something that's different, unique, and where I can really, put a stamp in the game is creating Ghana's first vineyard. So that's kind of where the story has evolved. It started as a test run to make some money, to do some donating, to see if there was any sort of brand recognition or if people had any, kind of need or want for it. And, everyone has wines. It's easy to find wine, right? So the way I saw myself or see myself, continuing in it is through something unique, which is development of Ghana's first sustainable vineyard. And that's
How big is Ghana?
Ghana? The size. It's a relatively big country in Africa, West Africa on the coast.
As big as the U.S. or is kind of like the size of Texas, the size of Florida?
Yeah, I'd say like a little bit half the U.S.
And so
population much smaller.
Got it. And you've gone there.
Yeah.
And you've done your research.
Yeah.
Have you located where you want to build a vineyard?
Yeah, we've sourced land.
This is fucking awesome, by the way.
Yeah,
Think about what we're
thanks.
talking about. You are going to buy land.
Yep.
And you are going to build a vineyard.
Yep.
In Ghana.
Yep.
To make grapes.
Yep.
That you're going to sell wine around the world from grapes that you're going to grow from a vineyard you're going to build in Ghana.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you stopped and just said that and thought about what you just said and the fact that in 2 years from now it's going to be so much more real than just saying it?
Yeah.
You're going to actually be doing it every single day.
Yeah. I mean,
it's crazy.
The thought is that if there's anybody that could do it, I think it would be me. And there's plenty of other people who could just throw money at something, right? But I'd say who are passionate about it, where it makes sense, can get over some of the hurdles as well, like infrastructure, some cultural things, but also the passion to really make it happen. I think it's genuine and authentic with me, right?
There's also part of being a D1 soccer player and just being an athlete flat out your whole life and the daily practice and being held accountable that comes into play here.
Totally.
That just, that there's not an end goal. There's just the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And you're just going to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, we did soil testing, went to Ghana, after multiple meetings and getting logistics
Who's
together.
with you and Dan?
No, this is, Dan has been focusing on his stuff. Like I told you, like I've taken the reins, right? Like he's kind of gotten me kick-started and is still my partner and one of my best friends. But this has definitely turned into like the Kwame show of
the Kwame Darko show.
Kwame Darko show of sorts with this, but he's very much still involved, and his wife Pipa as well, who's really helped with everything logistically. Yeah, so I mean, I think that I'm equipped to do it. We did soil testing, multiple meetings. This is with me, with different organizations in Ghana. So the GIPC, which is the investment arm in Ghana, Demeter, which is the agricultural arm in Ghana. My lawyer who's out in Ghana, who's able to get us over some different like hurdles, which is great. And then also like working on like different grants here in the U.S., right? So like I've been submitting for different grants to help move things along. There's definitely investment that I can get, And
what role does the government in Ghana play in this?
Well, land, right? Land there, they don't just give it away, especially to foreigners, right? Obviously, my name is Kwame Darko. They know that I'm of Ghanaian descent. My dad is from Ghana. My mom, rest in peace, she is from the U.S. But yeah, they don't just give away land. So you can lease land for, up to 100 years, right? But certain folks can also buy land. So you just have to figure out those different areas and ways in which you can do it.
How expensive is land in Ghana?
It
or
varies.
Is it like, who is it? Because depending on who it is how expensive we're going to make it.
Yeah, it varies. And they can, people can change their mind and rejig numbers. And again, that's the whole thing, is ownership of land. There's chiefs and families that own land, and then there's the government that owns some land. So there's times where multiple people have owned land and the paperwork hasn't been correct, and there's just fights and disputes and arguments over that stuff. So these are like a lot of the challenges and hurdles you can come across, right? Mm-hmm. And having the right team and doing things the right way is a big part of it. So between finding the land, it's also just communication in terms of getting the right materials and logistical stuff. Again, you have to be on the ground there, to really like understand and be able to like make moves throughout, because you can speak all you want and have all the phone calls, but nothing ever goes right or according to plan in general with anything in life here, either in the US. So yeah, just having multiple calls to figure things out and lots of research. And I have a whole team. I have a viticulturist. I have a
What is a viticulturist?
It's the grapes, the harvesting and the agricultural, that part of
layman's terms. It's the person who
knows
looks over the grapes.
Looks over the grapes and knows the science.
Yeah, it's a pre-sommelier.
Exactly. So so I've assembled a really great team. And we're just continuing to grow. We found a different land. We went there, did the soil testing, and in our findings, since that actually worked, and there's land that can be leveraged to create grapes. Like, we're going to do more soil testing because maybe there's a few other locations that we think we might like even more.
And you're going to buy the land there.
Yeah. So it's going to either buy and or lease it. It's like semantics almost, like depending, like there is land that's available for outright sale. Mm-hmm. But it's far and few in between, depending on who you are and whatever it is, which luckily I have those incentives and know the right people for that. But
and the network.
And then there's also the land that you can lease as well. So I think we'll do a mixture of it all. And yeah, so that's where we are now, and the goal is to start planting.
Are there other vineyards in Ghana?
No.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a climate thing. Like, again, there's hurdles. Like, what I learned from my my team is that you can essentially grow grapes anywhere. It's about how you sustain them in the vineyard, how you can sustain it. What amount of irrigation needs to go into it, what innovative practices are going into creating it. So we're dedicated to figuring it out, and we've found that there are definitely ways to sustain it and grow it and make it something really big. It's just people haven't wanted to put the time into it. And again, it's tough. There's challenges around, again, just infrastructure, putting the different pieces together, and then actually wanting to do it, right? And I don't think anyone's really put the time into it.
So what was for you, what's the biggest driving factor from wanting to do this?
The biggest driving factor, I think, is legacy, bringing, Ghanaian culture to the forefront a bit more, right? You see different menus, across the U.S. and across the world, right? You see the wine list, and it's France, Italy, maybe some Argentina, maybe a South Africa, right? And again, because of my background in marketing, sales, brand partnerships, why can't there be a Ghana wine on a list?
Why?
If it's a quality wine that I'm able
Why
to
not?
create. So I see it more as like a why not in that capacity, but then also even bigger is the philanthropic pieces to it, right? So we're going to create a whole new industry in Ghana, right? It's going to significantly help the GDP instead of importing like as much wine as they do. If you're able to create your own grape wine, which they have an affinity for, there's like champagne's a big affinity that they have over there, obviously, like rosés and chilled reds, whites, whatever. They love wine over there, but again, no one's growing it, so they have to go to outer sources, which costs a shit ton to make. But then again, being able to give back to the community, so starting a new industry there, essentially giving back to the different rural villages, education. During my first trip to Ghana, we gave away school supplies, medical supplies, through a soccer match where we just gave money away to both villages in the match. So I think it's just an opportunity to really give back tremendously and create jobs, and at the same time being able to pay homage to my background. And
that's as special as it gets.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
That's literally as special as it gets.
Yeah.
That you're like part of the 1%.
I'm trying.
You got a heart of gold.
I'm trying.
And I'd say probably in like, how long does it take to? Do you know how long it takes to build? Because like, when do you see this becoming like fully functioning on a daily basis? I know there's probably a lot of hoops you need to still jump through. Yeah. But is this like is 2026 realistic?
I'd say 2026, 2027. Right. I mean, on the ground and like day to day could be, as soon as 2024.
It's amazing. And where, speaking of on the ground, where right now could we find Darko Wine?
So it's direct to consumer at the moment. So I sell it all online in tandem with Orson. So if you go to darkowines.com, you can buy it there. There are select places where it can be bought in like in retail locations or wine bars, because we do have like distribution in New York. So, but we don't make enough where I have to, leverage like distributors. I can just go direct to the store. Exactly. So there's been a few wine bars that I love to go to where it's nice to just bring folks and they get to try my wine because it's there. But for the most part, direct to consumer, so that we can also maximize profits to leverage to give back to folks as well. So the wine, like, we sell it in 3, 6, and 12. They're $40 bottles at the moment, which, making somebody spend.
What's the most common purchase?
Most common is 3.
Makes sense.
Right, and then most common is definitely 3, and then you get companies and folks like there's people who buy it for happy hour, or people supporting where they'll buy a case, several cases, even sales folks as well. Like, because again, I've been in the sales industry where come gifting.
Yeah, when I saw it, it just it looks like, and I love to spend money on friends' businesses. I love to spend money on clients' business. I love to spend money on businesses within my network. Yeah. So like when I first saw Darko Wines, I'm like, this would be a great closing gift. So the next closing that I have, if it's with you, you're probably gonna get a case of Darko Wine.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
What are you reading right now?
What am I reading right now? What am I reading? I just finished the 48 Laws of Power. Yeah? Yeah.
What'd you think?
I mean, I like it. Lots of good stories and things.
Are you when it comes to reading? Are you business self-help? Is that your go-to? I'm more of a podcast guy, to be honest. More of a podcast guy. What's your favorite podcast?
Favorite podcast, Tim Ferriss. Yeah.
He's powerful.
Yeah, he's great. He actually got me to go to work at Gimlet. Like, they used him as the selling point, which was fantastic. Which was awesome. Yeah.
Is there any book that you would recommend to anybody, like a youngin coming out of college, kind of law. Nah, it doesn't even have to be that. Just anybody.
Yeah.
Is there any book that you would recommend for someone to read?
I like The Alchemist a lot. The story there, the storyline of The Alchemist. Love
We were
that.
just talking about The Alchemist.
Yeah? Nice.
I think Rob's reading that right now.
Nice, yeah. Was it one's personal? Was it? It's not his personal journey. Whatever they called it in the book. I forget whatever it is.
I don't know, but now this is the third time I'm hearing Read The Alchemist.
Yeah.
Second time in the last hour.
Yeah.
So I got to put it on the list. I'm fully just gonna put it on the list, and now I actually have to read it.
Yeah. No, it definitely it speaks to people's journeys, right? It's like you think there's like an end goal, right? And you think that you want something, but you're actually living it as you're going along in the process, right? So it's great.
Amazing. What does the next 6 months look like for you?
Next 6 months, gonna go to Portugal with the family for a few months. So the entire family, we're gonna go there. Just have a different lifestyle for a bit and hang and
drink a lot of wine.
Drink a lot of wine, right? Visit some of the vineyards where this is sourced from, and then during that process, still do some consulting work for sure, and working on some funding. As I mentioned, we're working on a few different grants, putting together a potentially bigger investment plan as well for where we see this going once we've already locked in a few different things. But the next 6 months, I see early 2024 there being tremendous progress in terms of like having started planting, right, versus just having like the land and knowing what's possible, and connecting with the right folks. So it's very much a reality. We have a lot of folks in Ghana behind us, from the different like investment firms and agricultural firms. And
are you looking for additional private investment?
I think at some point it'll, at this point it's just like you want it to be the right folks as well.
Okay.
But definitely, I think definitely we're gonna.
So like if a wine enthusiast, or let's say someone who's of Ghana descent, or Ghana is somewhat rooted within their family, or we'll go back, or a wine enthusiast who thinks that the marketing behind this is genius.
Yep.
The story is genius.
Yep.
Those are more of the people that you're looking to take investment from, or would you take it from just someone who wants to take a shot on Kwame? Yeah,
someone who wants to take a shot. The people who are interested and passionate about it. I think it's always the right fit and the right person or company that shares the same sort of values and believes in me and what I stand for. But I'm open to everything, but I'm also like very selective in terms of like who I would actually like take money from. It's got to be the right fit, because it's my name's on it. It's my baby. I see so many different ways where this is going to help so many different people. A big part is somebody who wants to be a part of the philanthropic pieces. That's like by far number one to me, is being able to give back, like, right, changing some kids' lives as well. Like that's something I want to make sure I'm able to do consistently, right? The next thing we may be doing is just going and grabbing a kid that's really good at soccer but doesn't have necessarily the money to focus on it in Ghana, and just start throwing money at their money at them to take some of the pressures off of the daily lives. So that's that's definitely what I want to do. So whatever it is, it's going to be rooted in philanthropy and giving back and helping the community in these villages. So that's kind of
That's amazing. So to piggyback on that, for me, for Naomi, for Tyson, give me one word of advice for anyone trying to make it.
I would say everything adds up, right? Everything adds up, right? It's never necessarily going to be one big win. It's all the little things that you do that add up to that next step, for sure. Again, you may think that something is going against your trajectory or the direction that you want to go, but I've learned that if you're good enough at something to begin with and you do good enough in there, you're going to have enough advocates in that realm, and you don't know the degree of separation you are from one person to the next person. So I think just anything you do, find the positive in it, do your best at it, because it's little steps. You know, it might be a million little steps before that, you know, huge one.
My dude.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah.
Kwame
Likewise.
Darko. Darko wine. Soon to be made in Ghana. Right?
Yes, sir.
Have a good one.